So we'll begin. Today's topic is all about screening. And what we're going to do is cover use cases that how I use the Deepvue screener, how I've set up things from a daily routine perspective and a weekly routine, and when the market's open, what do my charts look like, etc. So we'll cover our use cases today, and that will give you guys inspiration as to how you can use the application if you signed up as well. So I'll get into the very details of some of the screens and why I run those screens, and then I'll hand it over to Nick. He will do the same from a daily, a weekend perspective. We'll take questions along the way as you have them. And from there, we're hoping that we'll give you some really good insight and some like productivity hacks within Deepvue so that you can accelerate your onboarding and how you use it and how you find value in the application as well. So first up is the daily routine. So for me, I try to segment things, if I'm waking up and the market's open at 9:30 Eastern, if you're from India, it's a different time. Regardless of where you are in the world, it doesn't really matter. The way, I wake up, I try to set things up on my dashboard. So on the left-hand side of the menu, we have the dashboard module. So if you're not using that, you can go ahead and create yourself a new dashboard and you have the ability to create unlimited. The way I've set it up for myself is I have daily screens that I run during the market when it's open. After the market is closed, I come back to this screen and also, go through all the names and kind of have a daily routine as to what I want to see and run really specific tactical screens that tell me what happened during the day, what's acting well, overall, in terms of dollar volume and the bigger names, how those are acting, and how do I need to, go into tomorrow? What's my perspective going into tomorrow as I run through these screens? So we'll get started with my daily screening dashboard. I have 4 screens that are usually up throughout the day that I'm looking at. The first one is the HV screen, the high volume. So this one catches any high volume, so highest volume in a year for a stock, highest volume ever, highest volume since IPO. And what I tend to do is have this up and I have the columns for each. So it's almost like a checkbox, this particular stock, the UTHR or WERN, this one met the highest volume in a year on the daily chart itself. So it shows up on my screen and this continuously updates real time for me. This gives me a really good idea of which stocks, I should be keeping an eye on and which stocks could be the potential, have potential to run up or, based on one of the edges that I have in the markets. The other thing I want to cover with respect to this screen is it updates throughout the day, right? And more names make it through this particular screen throughout the day. So as I see, if today there were only 6 names, we had a lot of Fed talk at 2 p.m. Eastern that came in, the market swung up and then it swung right back down. But on an aggregate basis, there's only 6 names today. So right off the bat, what that tells me in my screening is, today there were not many high volume names. We're into earnings season as well. And the fact that we don't see, those two things line up, there's a little bit of a risk off environment that's happening, especially during earnings season, right? When we're in the thick of earnings season or earnings season starting, you'll see a lot of names show up on the screen and, maybe 10, 15, 20. And out of those 10, 15, or 20, maybe 2 or 3 are very interesting in terms of the catalyst that they had, the earnings that they reported, whatever the news event might be that caused a high volume gap to happen. One of the things I stole from Nick recently was these 3 columns and adding them as a checkbox. It gives me a really quick visual view of it. Does it meet all 3 criteria? Right? Or is it only one of them, which is HV1? So with the high volume edge, if it's the highest volume in a year, I kind of, value it a little less than if it's the highest volume ever. So as an example, yesterday's HV screen had this particular stock on it, WGS, right? And this was the highest volume ever. And the stock, the company reported earnings, they narrowed their losses. It showed up on my daily screens. And then what I did was I moved that particular stock by clicking this to my focus list, which we covered in the last webinar, which I give, anything that I want on my focus list gets a blue color or this teal color, and then, have that in my focus list right away. So this is one of the first screens that I'm running. It's up all day. If I were to, switch to another dashboard and come back to it, it's there. It gives me a good idea of what is happening in the markets. Now the next one that I'm running, I'll go over the liquidity screen. The liquidity screen is basically a pure, show me all stocks that have high dollar volume, are very liquid. And the number of stocks on this doesn't really matter too much. The only indication it gives me, okay, today there were 193 stocks, is that it was a good volume day in the markets. That can be used, day to day. If you have 200 tomorrow or 250 tomorrow, then it could mean that there was higher volume in the markets on an aggregate basis. But what I use this screen for mostly is how are the top stocks that get a lot of dollar flow, right? In terms of how many shares they're trading, how are those stocks acting in terms of just pure strength or weakness overall? So if the money is being, traded in these stocks, these 193 stocks that meet the liquidity screen criteria, how are those very, very liquid stocks trading in the market? So that's what this screen is for. It gives me a really good, the Microsofts, the Apples, the bigger, United Health, Lilly, ETFs as well, make it through this screen, etc. It gives me a really good gauge of how those work. I do see a question in the chat on showing the screens themselves. So if I click the edit, these are the screen. This is the HV screen that I'm running. It's very simple, right? Show me all common stocks. The last price is greater than 5. The price percent change today is greater than 0. Average dollar volume is at least 5 million on a 20-day basis. So it's traded $5 million in terms of dollar volume every, on average over the last 20 days. It gets rid of a lot of the penny stocks that tend to show up or lower price stocks that tend to show up on the HV screen. And then group
Is this a preset?
Yes, this is a preset. Yes. And then in group 2, it's basically an or condition. So I'm saying show me if it's a HV1, highest volume in a year, if it's a highest volume ever, or it's the highest volume since IPO, send that through if any of these are true. So these are my core conditions, basically liquidity conditions, and then these are my, which ones do I want to see in the market. In terms of it being a preset, we could go here, we go to screener presets, we could type in high volume. Give me 1 second. We do have it. It might be under Deepvue or might be under technicals right here. Yeah. Highest volume ever, highest volume in a year, highest volume since IPO. And I can convert this after the webinar to just call it the high volume screen as well, which combines the 3 screens into one. The second one we covered is liquidity. So again, liquidity is again very simple screen. Show me all stocks that had volume greater than 6 million or more today and traded above the price of 15. So again, high dollar volume stocks to really get a gauge of what is going on in the markets from that perspective. So I run through these 193. Again, we're on daily screening. So I'm trying to build an opinion of what happened today in the markets, right? I want to know what happened today. And this particular screen, which gives me a lot of names to go through, gives me a really good idea of as to what is happening in terms of price action on a day-to-day basis. The next two that I have and that I like to keep up as well is, the tight range screen, which uses the relative measured volatility. And you'll see this over here. We'll get rid of this. Relative measured volatility, basically, tight stocks that are consolidating, that are forming a pattern. And this screen is built for that. This is also a preset. If you go to screener presets and type in tight range or the word tight, you will see this particular screen show up. Again, the main criteria here is show me stocks that are very tight on a 15-day basis relative to how they were trading over the past 15 days. So something like, KLG, which is showing up on the screens, is kind of flagging, right? And this screen nets a lot of setups, I would say, in terms of how things are looking. So MTTR gapped up, is now consolidating. So going through this will give you a lot of stock, like OCSR is acting pretty well. Like it's flagging as the market figures out what it wants to do. It's holding the rising 10-day, and it becomes, you zoom out and you do a little more, in terms of like how the pattern's forming itself. So it's kind of a U shape with a flag, and it's showing relative strength as the market figures out its next move. So this screen itself, the reason I'm using this screen is just to see, some patterns that might be building, and you'll see a lot of relative strength, especially on a down day in the markets, which we had yesterday, and especially for patterns, in the next 3 to 5 days that might be flagging out, building, etc. It makes it really, really easy for me to track those as well. The last one I'll go through is just absolute strength 1 month. And all this screen is doing is show me the top performers in the market over the last month. And I want to see what is showing strength. The biggest column in here is this sub-industry column. And as you can see, it says, okay, biotechs are most popular on the screen at the moment, which basically gives me a clue that, okay, biotech, maybe the healthcare space, etc. That part of the market may be acting a little bit better than others. And then this highlight, the biotechnology highlight, can change day to day. And it gives me a really good gauge of, over the past month, what's acting well, what isn't acting well in the markets. And I go through this screen quickly to give me that, that clue or the idea. So Nick, these are the four that I'm running. Maybe you want to cover what you're running on a day-to-day basis and how you kind of look at the markets on a daily basis.
Yeah, should I share my screen or should I just kind of walk through it?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
All right, so my process is pretty simple. I'm a little bit longer term of a trader than Rye. Um, every single day, the main screen that I'm focusing on is up on volume, so I keep that up over here. I'm looking at a couple things. One, I keep the HV1 and HVE columns here so I can quickly see if any of these are meeting the high volume criteria. Because I obviously want to look into those and see what's going on. Do they look good? They're going to be my top focus. The second thing I'm looking for is how many results are coming up here. So the number of results that you get on the up on volume screen, and up on volume is a preset, by the way, in Deepvue. The amount of results you get on this helps let you know kind of the risk appetite in the market and if it kind of it's kind of like how I look at the breadth of the market in a sense because I'm watching this every day. So this could sometimes, be like 60 or 70 names or other times it could be 800. So it really helps you understand what market we're in and how aggressively or not I should be trading. So those are the two things I'm really looking at with up on volume. The other thing I do look at is the industry and sector. So in Deepvue, when you're looking at a screen and it's highlighted blue, the industry or sector, it's because that's the industry that is the theme of that screen. So the industry that shows up here the most is biotechnology and the sector is healthcare. So right away, this tells me that uh, out of everything that popped up on volume today, significantly, it's dominated by healthcare and biotech. So that's what I'm looking for over here with up on volume. And then basically everything from up on volume goes into one of two watch lists. So I click here and it'll either go into basing if it's building a base, or sorry, it'll go into character change, or it'll go into any surge, which just means like it had a surge of volume. So anything from up on volume goes into one of these three watch lists. I do not dive into those watch lists specifically. I keep the universe list here on my dashboard, and the universe is automatically a combination of all my separate watch lists. So whatever it's on, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not approaching them differently. I'm just looking to see this is the universe of everything that I've added to any watch list. And then the very last step for me is it's going to come when something stands out for me. I usually sort by percent change today. So this way I could see which names on my watch list are moving the most up and down. Is there a theme as well? The last step of this is when something looks actionable, I add it to my focus list. And my focus list is never more than 7 names, which is still a lot. Like really ideally no more than 4. This is stretching it a little bit, but my focus list is everything that I'm looking to actively get a position in. So, and then these will either turn into positions, which I indicate with a green target list. So if you just look in the universe, you could see ON here. I have a position, so I can see that this is one of my stocks. But that's all I'm doing. I'm running up on volume, getting my ideas. Those ideas used to move to one of my watch lists, and then I can view all those watch lists using the universe list. And when something looks actionable and I want to focus on that, I move it to my focus list here. And that's pretty much my daily routine. I'll hand it back to you, Ray.
So I think it's important from, regardless of if you use Deepvue, don't use Deepvue, if we talk about just generic screening, Nick is using the up on volume and he's using that daily to gauge, how are things going, what themes are kind of, popping up. Biotechnology seems to be one on his screen today in the healthcare space. That seems to be most popular, highlighted by that particular row. Now, that kind of screening, it's kind of tactical screening to be, this info when it goes in the back of your mind helps you prepare for the next day. And that's really what's important regardless of the platform that you're using today. And then the second is core screening. So core scans, for me, are related to the edges that I have in the market. So I'm very confident when I saw WGS yesterday, right? I drew the levels on it and I traded it well today. All of that is a product of how I approach the markets with, I go to my daily screens, dashboard, I run through the screens that I know I'm supposed to run. I feel very prepared going into the next day in the markets itself. And that confidence then breeds into execution if a trade does present itself at the end of the day. So that, don't forget the process of it, regardless of which platform you're using. I think, daily screening should be tactical. So if the market has a big outside down day, it's probably a good idea to be running, let's say, a rough inside day screen is what I have. So I'll change the screens on my dashboard and I'll run other ones to see, hey, which stocks had a higher low, like a low that is greater than the prior day's low, while the market had a really, yesterday we had a really big down day, or the Nasdaq was almost down 2%, etc., or had an outside day. Or I have a strength in weak markets, which just looks for if the S&P or the Qs are completely down, for example, or they're completely down on everything's down on the day, what was positive? And that's what this screen is looking for. So it's important, for me, I've just created folders. I have tactical screening and core screening. My core screening is the high volume edge. My tactical screening is based on what the market's doing. I'm going to run particular screens on that particular day just to see. At the end of the day, all of it for me boils down to what's showing strength relative to the market, what's performing well relative to the market, and what setups are building, especially with a tight range screen relative to the market conditions as well. There's a question of what are these white dots on my charts? These are not ants, the ants indicator. It's not the ants indicator. So if I go to DV technical patterns and quickly click settings, it's the RMV. So this is relative measured volatility. Nick, if you want to find the blog post that we did on it and maybe paste that into the chat, that would be great. It's a calculation that looks for how the stock's price action is now or today relative to the look back period that you set it. So every time this stock becomes very tight relative to the last 15 sessions that it's traded, I see a white dot. And it's a very easy way for you to scan, the tight range screen uses relative measured volatility. We call it RMV. It uses that criteria to quickly filter our entire database down to stocks that are very tight relative to themselves in the markets. So do you see any other questions, Nick, that we should answer, or we could just keep going? How do you want to do this?
Just a couple of questions on up on volume. So up on the up on volume that I'm using is a preset. It's if you go to technical and then scroll down, it's up on volume. And yes, it's only showing stocks that are up. We do have one that's down on volume if you want to see that as well. But up on volume is only showing stocks that are up.
Yeah, and much of what we have and we've tried to make them, we always try to make them presets so that as you come onto the platform, you can duplicate them, use them for yourself, and then tweak them. But all that you see here most of these should be presets. And if they aren't, we'll happily make them right away. Any other questions? I see. How do you prioritize? Okay, it's a good question. So how do you prioritize the setup for trading if you have more trades filtered? So basically, how do you take one trade over another? At the end of the day, it boils down to how you study the markets, how you view the markets, your experience over time as to when you see a certain price, certain price action, certain pattern, if you're a technical trader, or if you're a fundamental trader, when you see certain fundamental characteristics creep into a name, right? So regardless of what, how do you prioritize? For me, if a stock is showing highest volume ever, it's tightening up, and the RMV is, showing a dot, I can manage my risk really well, and I see potential from the float is really good. It's liquid, the estimates are positive, etc. I try to combine both technical and fundamental aspects, and then rank them accordingly as I make my focus list as well, which we'll get into a little bit later when I go to the market.
I have a good answer too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like when it comes to making a watch list, there's so many names that always look good. I mean, if the market's healthy, there's a lot of names that always look good. and it's hard to make a focus list. Like I said before, you really don't want more than 5 names on your focus list. Otherwise, it's a distraction list, right? So you want no more than 5 names on your focus list. And the way that they make it to my focus list is I can have 100 setups that look good, but when I actually look at what's the price that I want to enter and where's the price that I want to exit, and if that risk reward is good, like if it's like 2% and the upside is way more than that, versus a stock could look really good, but when you actually manage your risk, you might be putting like 8% to make 8%, right? So it might look good, but the risk reward isn't in your favor, and so it shouldn't be on your focus list yet because it's not the right time to focus on it. And you can set alerts so that you can be reminded, when the risk reward gets a little better. But for me, like it only makes it to my focus list if it has a really, really good risk reward and it also looks technically really good as well.
Awesome.
Oh, I clicked answer live on RMV. What's the color on a white screen? So those white dots on a white background, they should be black.
Like these particular dots.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, these are RMV. So all I did was I went to settings, I went to style, and then for RMV, I just made it square.
Okay.
So that's all I did. And I made them like a different color so they pop out a lot. And then you can put them above whatever. You could put them at the bottom of your charts. You could put them right under the bar. I like them under the bar, so it's a better visual cue for me. So how do you get check marks for HV in column settings? Really good question. We'll answer that right now. Answer live. So all I did was I went to column. So you run the screen and then you have column settings. So you click this gear icon that shows up and then just type in, highest, the word highest, and you'll see ever one year and since IPO. And I added those in as well. So they're all set up as Boolean values or check marks or X's. The X's fade out and the check marks show. So it's a nice visual effect as well for you to know right away.
And if you have those same data points in your data panel as well, it'll show the same thing. So if you have the data panel up and you're going through different names, it will show an X or a check if it meets that criteria as well.
Can you please show us how to pull up the technical patterns? I only see DV measured volatility. Yes. So you click indicators at the very top. You type in DV dash. That brings up all the Deepvue indicators. And then you look for technical patterns, DV dash technical patterns. You add it to your indicators and then just settings. I turned everything else off and I kept RMV on. So sometimes I go in here and I just, I'll check if the stock's in a power trend and oops reverse. There's a whole bunch of them that you can enable and disable.
Oh, really good question. The enhanced volume indicator, what do the various colors indicate?
The various colors on the enhanced volume indicator that we have are base. If you go to style, you'll see that the green is a pocket pivot. Orange is a reverse pocket pivot, which shows you a volume dry up. So the lowest volume in the past 10 days, etc. So those are colored orange. Your up day is blue and your down is pink. So if you go under style, we have those colors and the names listed.
And you can make those whatever you want. I make all my volume very dull, except for the pocket pivot or the above average up days, just because that's what I'm really looking for.
Awesome. Okay, let's get back into it a little bit, and then we'll take questions as we go after the next thing we want to cover. So the next thing I want to cover is, before we get into like weekend routine and some of these other dashboards that I have, I do want to emphasize that every screen that you run, you can associate a different column set with. So when I run the HV screen, I've saved this particular column set. So these columns that I have, what we call these column sets. So if you go, to this drop down, you can create a dedicated column set for this particular screen. So anywhere in the platform that you end up running this screen, these columns will show up. And when they show up, like it's a quick way for you to, what's valuable on my HV screen may not be valuable on my absolute strength screen, or what's valuable on my liquidity screen as columns may not be valuable on my tight range screen, right? So it's a really good way for you to save them to the screen itself. And the second thing is we also save the sorting. The sorting also saves to the column set. So anywhere in the platform that that I load the HV screen, it will always remember what column I sorted it by. So that's one way for you guys to, really use column sets where you assign different ones to each of your screens, or you can assign the same one to 2 or more screens, and it will save the sorting, it will save the checkboxes, etc. And so that way, when you come back to the platform or you're using it within the screener module or deeplist module, they will all be kind of, it's there and ready for you instead of you, trying to load up a different one everywhere else. I don't see many of you using that, but it's a really good way for you to save some time as you use the platform. Nick, anything you want to cover there with column sets? Any visuals that you want to cover with, some of the columns that we have in the platform?
No, well, yeah, I'll just say we try to make things visual when we can. So like the volume column, you can see the past 5 days of volume, so you can quickly see um what it's been like if it is a pocket pivot or whatnot. Um, the only thing I'd add is like I base my column sets based on what I guess makes the most sense, which sounds dumb, but like up on volume, right? What's an important thing that I want to take away from when I'm looking for what stocks are up on the day on a lot of volume? One really big takeaway is if there's a theme, if there's a certain industry of stocks that are all moving up on volume at once, I really, really want to see that. So I've incorporated that into my column set for up on volume. Same thing with HV1, HVE, which is just the high volume in a year or ever. I put those in the highest volume, up on volume screen because it's just tailored on, what information do you really want. So put some thought into the column sets, and it's a really useful tool.
Next, we'll get into some. So we covered, what screens we're running daily. I'll go over kind of what I have up when the market's open and what I'm looking at as well. So while the market's open, I have my core watch list. So I have my focus list. These are stocks that I'm actively watching how they're developing. I'm interested in maybe acting on them if the market allows me to. There's setups that are building. And what I've done in my trading is assign that this blue target list. So anywhere in the platform, when I see a symbol that I feel deserves attention, that is setting up really well, I want to take a position in that particular name. I click the logo and I make it blue. So when I come to my market open dashboard, that particular stock is already there, and then I can flip through each of them, going back and forth through them. The next one is my high volume list. So any stock when I'm running through my daily screen and I think it's worthy of being on the high volume list, I color that red. So any stock that is not set up yet, but is one that I'm watching. How Nick does that is with the basing. He adds it to basing, or he adds it to surge, etc. I'm adding it to HV because I want to track how these are, for example, ANF. Its first gap right here, when it gapped up over here, it was added to the HV list. When the setup formed and I traded the name, right, etc., and it moved up, and up, it doesn't have a setup right now. So I keep that still on my HV list because it's still, very valid even a year later now, right? Today's May 1st and the last gap was end of May last year. It's still, on my HV list, but when it forms a setup, I can move it to my focus. So I can change the color from red to blue. So it's more about, watch list management. We covered that in the last webinar. The third one is my HDF to see how some of the stocks that have moved up, 100% in less than 8 weeks, how those are acting. I like to keep those up just to see, the very volatile, fast-paced movers. How are those acting in the markets today? The other one I have is IPO. I love to look at, younger names in the market. If there's enough risk appetite for those names, there's going to be risk appetite everywhere where things are going to be accumulated. If the younger names in the market are performing well, it means the overall market is very, very healthy. So I have a whole dedicated watch list for IPOs. I keep my universe up as well when the market is open. So the way that Nick has his universe screen, or his universe deep list that stores all of his names, this is the same universe deep list. It stores all of these names into one list, and I tend to sort it many different ways during the session, etc., and have that always up. I sorted by different ones. I keep going through my universe, so 170 names maybe And every hour, every 30 minutes, or the first hour of the day, I'm doing that a lot. Then I step away for a couple of hours, come back, go through with the universe again, see how things are acting. So this aggregate watch list that combines all the other ones is a really good one as well. And then I have my markets. This one, I have both the equal weights. So, S&P 500, the equivalent equal weight ETF for that. The Qs, the equivalent ETF for the Qs, and then IWO, IWM, the equivalent equal weight ETF for that. This really tells me, what's going on. It was very useful today in terms of how the market is acting. So I sort this one by price percent change from open. So how are these ETFs acting from 9:30 and onwards? So where is the momentum in the markets as the bell rings? So today's momentum was IWM moved up the most from the open, and the rest of them didn't really do anything for the day. So we had a Fed event at 2 p.m. We rallied a little bit, and then we ended up closing on the lows of the day across the board, right? Basically a denial at the 50-day. The second thing this tells me is if the equal weights are performing good, but the bigger ones, which are the weighted ones, for example, the NASDAQ, it has a lot of Apple in terms of holding. It has a lot of Google. It has a lot of Microsoft. If the QQQ is acting bad, but the QQQE is acting okay, the equal weight, it tells me that the weakness in the market might be with the big cap stocks only. And we might, there might be a reason to rally back up later in the day. So I really like this percent change from open column. It gives me a really good idea of our small caps working, is our big caps working, or there's equal strength in the markets accordingly. So these are some of the watch lists that I have up during the day. I sort them many different ways. So I could sort them by DCR, percent change, etc., depending on the situation. That's something, when the market's open, I'm really focused on here. And I'm also, kind of flipping back to daily screens to take a look at what's going on there. So a lot of flipping back and forth for me with these two. Nick, for you, is it only, the up on volume, the universe, and those three and just one dashboard, right?
Yeah. I don't do much else. That's pretty much my main routine. Just do it over and over. Get good at it.
Awesome. So I wanted to cover this, the market open. So that covers, I really want you guys to get an idea of like, there's tactical screening, right? If you're a swing trader, position trader, there's always tactical screening that's involved. There's core screens that you need to run that are tied to your edges. There are watch lists that you need to maintain, right? From your screens, you move stuff to your watch list that you want to continue watching throughout. I really like using the color-coded system where I know anything blue is focus, anything red is my HV, anything purple is my IPOs, right? I have that kind of down or written down as well. It's fine, but you get really used to that type of system, and it makes management of tickers in the system very, very easy. Again, you spend less time worrying about, it's a productivity hack, really. It allows you to manage things a lot quicker and faster, so you can focus on your trading and making decisions instead of worrying about where everything may be. The next thing we will cover that I have written down here is a little bit about the weekend routines. So the way I run my weekend routine, so basically on the weekends, Saturday morning, Saturday evenings, whatever, it's important to have one where you're going through kind of the same, I wouldn't say same, but you're going through some structure where you're running, I'll go through IPOs over the last year. I'll go through the S&P 500 stocks. I'll go through the NASDAQ stocks. I'll go through HTF or Launchpads to formulate an opinion for the next week in the markets. And that's, I'll go over that now as to how I do it. Hopefully it helps you guys, and then we'll take questions as to if you have any questions for that. So the first is I go through the IPOs in the last year for sure. Sometimes I expand the horizon, like I could go over all the IPOs in the last 2 years. So this particular filter is basically looking at December 2020 to 2023. So I tweaked it last weekend to give me a broader scope of what's happening in the markets. So I reviewed all the IPOs in the last 3 years that are common stocks, have an average daily volume of 200K or more. This screen, what it tells me is how are younger stocks performing? Is there a risk appetite for them, or is there no risk appetite for them? If there's no risk appetite for the younger stocks or ones that are just listed in the markets, usually means that market as a whole won't be very easy to trade, right? So these are 400 names for me to go through. I usually look at daily charts. pretty quick. Again, we're talking about this is the weekend routine. So you have a lot more time. The market is closed. You can spend maybe 2 hours, 2.5 is what I tend to do, and go through each of these names, kind of build and formulate an opinion. The second one is I go through the S&P 500. So 500 names in the S&P. I go through each of these. It just gives me what are the big caps doing? What are these 500 stocks that are in this ETF? How are they acting? Overall, again, this is to formulate an opinion on the markets. Again, on the weekends, you have a lot more time. You go through these, it will take no more than maybe 3 to 4 minutes to flip through these, at least on the daily charts, to see how those are acting. The next one is I also go through, if I go to my weekend routine folder, so I have like a dedicated folder. I have all of these screens stored. I'll go through the NASDAQ 100 as well. So this is all the holdings for the QQQ ETF. I'll review those names, try to formulate a bit, are technology stocks working? Are they not working as well? The next one, I'll go through HDF screen. So stocks that are up 100% in less than 8 weeks. This is more about, high, stocks that are moving up rapidly. This is another gauge of is it risk on environment or is it risk off environment? In a market that's good, you will see a lot of stocks double and triple very, very quickly. I use this as a gauge more so than trading them these days. For me, it's more so, are there enough stocks out there that are, is it risk on in the markets or is it risk off? Very similar to the IPO over the last 3 years. This is another gauge of, are momentum names working? Are they not? Or are they not working? The same old HV screen. So this combines all the highest volume in a year, highest volume since IPO, highest volume ever into one screen. I go through these, I sort them, many different ways. It also tells me, which sector or sub-industry is popular with these blue columns as well. Again, these get moved to my red list, which is my HV list, if they're good names as well. The last one that I run over here is Launchpad. Launchpad is a pattern where all the moving averages are converging into each other. So if I go to this first result, you'll see that the 10-day, and I'll show you guys my colors with this moving average indicator. So I have the 10, 23, and the 65, and the colors on those are very confusing. The 10 is green, the other one is purple, and then it's orange. So when these three moving averages are converging or tightening or in the close vicinity of each other or within 3 to 5% of each other, it means that this particular stock is based for, a 65-day period at a minimum. And when this happens, it's usually a good sign that, this stock may turn up. And that's what we call the Launchpad. If you haven't heard of it, go to YouTube, just type in Launchpad Trader Lion. You'll see a lot of videos. We've discussed it infinite amount of times to learn that concept. The reason I run this screen is to see which groups are forming Launchpads, which groups may see rotation into them next. Is it utility? Is it banks? Is it biotechs? Is it healthcare, etc.? So this Launchpad screen has 135 names. I want to see what's most popular on this particular screen and what, the money might be rotating to next. And that's what this screen is built for. That's what Launchpad, the concept of Launchpad was built for as well. I have another one. This one I just keep for, if I want to run any other screen, I try to keep, the IPO, S&P 500, high type flags, HV, and Launchpad. They're always up. So I just, on Saturdays or Sundays, pull this up. They're already loaded with the columns that I want. They're sorted the way I need them to be. And then the last one I tend to use, depending on, let's say we're in a correction. What are we doing? We might run a different screen when the market's in correction. Whereas if we're in a trend already, then we might run a different screen if we're already in the trend, right? So I have different folders. So I have one for corrections that will tell me, price is greater than the 50-day. It's a good way to see if the S&P is below the 50, if the Qs are below the 50, which stocks are above the 50, or if the Qs are below the 21-day, or S&P is below the 21-day, which stocks are above it. So you could build these out. I think tactical screening, we could sit here all night. There are many, many different situations that we could cover. But I think it's important for you guys to create folders that are dedicated to each, if a market's in correction, what do you want to scan for? So you're prepared, right? So next time the market goes into correction, you just run the 62.5, I run this one. I know exactly which stocks are showing relative strength. I don't need to put any effort because I have my workflow kind of built out for me, and the dashboard gives me exactly what I need from it at the end of the day. So we'll pause there. We'll take a few more questions. Nick, I do want you to cover a little bit about how you are screening on the weekends, what you're screening for, what you're thinking as well. I think that's most important. And how do you kind of organize for the next week ahead?
My routine doesn't really differ from my daily routine. I do the same thing over and over again. That's kind of just how I manage like generating ideas, organizing ideas, and then acting on ideas. But over the weekend, I will look into I'll just kind of like organize my thoughts in notes or something like up on volume. I'm always looking for what the theme is, right? So if a few days in a row or we see a certain theme, I'm gonna take note of that over the weekend, and then that may even play into what makes it to my focus list. So before I mentioned my focus list is strictly risk reward as well as setup, but it also does depend or can depend on if there's a theme. So if a new trending theme is semiconductors, right? And something on my watch list is a semiconductor name, then that might get added to my focus list because now I have the group behind it, and it's going to be way more successful because every stock, over half its move is related to its group. So if there's a theme in the market, if you're trading a name within that theme, you're going to have a lot more success. So over the weekend, I'm really just organizing my thoughts and making sense of everything I've gathered throughout the week, and then really just if there's any changes that have to be made to my focus list. So that's it.
Awesome. So let's start taking a few questions. Is there a way you can zoom in the letters and numbers? I think it might be a little too late for that, but I might have been on 90%. I'm at 100% now. That's my bad. Can you show the screener fields and settings for each of these so we know which fields? Yeah. So like IPO 1 year, let's go through, what this screens looks like. So I want to look at IPOs over the past 3 years. So when I click that, you'll have this thing come up, IPO date, period. If I click this, I have some presets that are available. I'm super zoomed in just to give you guys a better visual. So I could go over the last year, last month, last week, next week, and then I set it up so that it kind of looks for, if you go last year, it will go May 1, 2023. Today's May 1, and then it will go May 2024. Apply that. It will, over the last year, there are 77 IPOs that have an average daily volume of 200K or more, right? Now that makes it your IPO one. Now this is flexible, right? Sometimes I switch it up to last 3 years, sometimes I keep it the last year, etc. So it just gives me the flexibility. All you need to do in Deepvue is click this filter for you to, change the criteria on the fly. You don't need to go back to the screener module for that. This one's pretty straightforward. S&P 500 is yes. So if I click this, under general and markets, you can have the NASDAQ 100, S&P, Dow Jones, and Russell, and you can click yes, and it will filter for all the stocks in the S&P. Same thing for high tight flag. Price percent change on a 20-day basis above 100. Don't include any warrants, etc. So I'm excluding some of the universe so that I can see stocks. I could probably add a liquidity criteria to this. I don't tend to do that because I just want to see everything that meets these two things, or this particular criteria, the first one, price percent change greater than 100. HV screen, we've covered that, right? Common stocks, price percent change greater than 0, and then all the HVs in an OR bucket as well. So any of these are true, those results will come through, and I want to see all the common stocks. That's what this screen is about. Launchpads, same thing as well. So we have, coded Launchpads into the platform. So all you need to do is go to, technicals and then technical patterns down here. And then we have, many, many, many different technical patterns that you could pick and choose from. And then Launchpads is one of them. So I click yes, add some liquidity criteria that I have to it. And that screen is also ready over here. Again, the criteria for Launchpads is not some like secret sauce. It's just 3 moving averages that are converging or in close proximity together. that's what forms a Launchpad. And so if you include a 65-day moving average, is close to the 21-day moving average, which is close to the 10-day moving average. The stock has now been basing from a 10-day perspective, 21-day perspective, and a 65-day perspective as well. Some
And
people
the name Launchpad, I'll just say the name Launchpad just really comes from like you have all these different time frame traders watching their moving average, and now you know that all these different time frames are watching whatever their moving average is, and that's the same area, and we're trading above it. So basically, if we pull back into that area, everyone's looking for it to be supported and probably buy there. So it kind of acts like a Launchpad.
Yeah, what's the significance of the 65-day versus the 50-day? So the 65-day comes from just a study, and it comes from Ross. He mentioned it a while ago. So it's based on some market study where folks found that the 65-day moving average, if a stock loses its 50, it's often supported at the 65. There's a video out there where Ross discusses this. Maybe we can repost it on our socials, etc. But there's a method to that. It's not just like a random number that came about. So these are the screens. I hope if you have any other questions on filters, happy to share them. There's like nothing secret here. So feel free to like tag me on Twitter, or if you want to see the exact criteria for anything.
David, it's a 65 EMA, not the SMA, but yeah, it's EMA.
EMA. Yep. Is it possible to create a deep list and then run a screener on that? It's not possible yet. It will be into the summer. So it's being worked on right now. When are we going to be able to look up the main 4 indexes on DV? So it's coming this summer. Promise. So we're working on it. Yeah, so you'll see the S&P 500, you'll see global indexes actually come through as well. So that data will be available. And they will also be real time. So there'll be CFD based indexes. They'll be real time and you can follow them. There's please a recurring question. Victor, your question didn't come through. It just says, please a recurring question, colon. So if you want to submit that again, more than happy to answer it. Can you explain how you use the change in character screen, Nick?
I think Victor's question was, oh no, never mind. Sorry. Can you explain how to use? Yeah, so changing character, it says beta next to it, and we haven't done anything with it in like a month. Just because I believe we're waiting for a data point or something, right? I'm not sure. Um Rye's like the technical one, but basically what it's looking for is if you run it, Rye, if you want to
Yeah, I
run
have
it
it
on
up
your
right here.
screen. Um,
Do you
if you
see
look at like,
you see my screen? Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
zoom out to the results.
Okay. Yeah. We got CGC
And then yeah, go to CGC and then go to weekly and
a
then
little bit.
just make this look better.
So I have on my weekly, I'm using the key moving average. I have the 10-week and the 40-week. That's fine, right?
Yeah, that's fine. It looks way better on my chart, but basically you're just looking for like this stock's been pretty beaten down. If you zoom out a little bit quick, it's been beaten down and it's really uh it's not something you'd ever want to buy. And then if we zoom back in, all of a sudden this huge volume comes in and pushes it up. So it's not just moving up, it's coming in on absolutely insane volume. And then uh after it breaks out or moves up a little bit, right? You're not going to buy something without being able to manage your risk off the bottom. So it pulls back, and you can see it kind of pulls back here, makes a higher low, and then that's your character change. So you just broke out after a multi-year downtrend, and you make your first higher low after moving off the bottom on massive volume. And that's what the character change is looking for. But I think it could be better. I just we got to sync on that, right?
Yep. Definitely do that. You said that the leaders. Okay, so you said that the leaders list is used to gauge, and then what do you mean by that? So I probably
Oh,
I don't,
you have your a leaders list. You keep a list of leaders.
not that I'm aware of.
Oh,
My
I thought it was one of your target lists. Huh?
my leaders are on my focus list, but
Oh, okay.
I not I if I said that I still don't understand quite what I may have said. But the idea is if you want to track strong stocks in the market, and ones that have buyable points and are set up according to your criteria, place them on a focus list. When the market opens, focus on that, and they'll be the best gauge of like if the market has the risk on appetite or not. At the end of the day, your portfolio tells you the most about how the market's doing. Even if you're picking underperforming names, then you'll kind of complain about, hey, I see other names going up 20%, my names are going up 2%. That's a different type of complaint that you're making with the market. Whereas, regardless of what names you have, they're all down, right? So maybe that's what I was trying to go for, is place the ones that you're looking to have positions in on a focus list. Really, focus on those names when the market is open. Have less than
It's 7 o'clock.
seven, like Nick said. Have the less names you have, the better outcome of you actually executing upon what you prepared when the market was closed. So we'll dismiss that. Please provide insight about pocket pivots. What are they and how do you use them? Nick, you want to paste the guide on pocket pivots we have on the trader line side? So there's a guide that we have. So basically pocket pivots, it's a concept that says that the volume today was higher than any down day volume in the past 10 days. And that's what a pocket pivot is. You could just Google pocket pivot trader line. You'll see videos on it. Google pocket pivot trade line. We have a whole guide with examples as well, I believe, right? And all the rules related to it. So
Yeah, that's a good question though, because if you guys read the guide that we wrote, one of like the really big benefits of pocket pivots are they're supposed to like be like it might not be a massive volume day, it might just be pretty subtle, but it's the biggest up day in the past 10 days, and so it's supposed to give you like an early advantage to see accumulation. And in the enhanced volume, we do sometimes color pocket pivots, like even if we're not in a base and it's not early and it is a little extended. So that might be a little bit
confusing.
a bit of a confusing, yeah. So we'll check that out. But pocket pivots are just signs of early accumulation, usually within a base, and it just shows you like tracks.
I noticed that the weekly price bar is available only on Monday. So if I run a weekly scan, am I looking at data that is a week old? So if we go to the weekly price bar that's available here versus here, it's for the week. So the price bars that we have are from Monday to Friday. So on Monday, a weekly bar starts on the weekly chart. And it's just as simple as that. Nothing more complicated.